A different day, the same story for K-State. Fourth loss of the season, fourth one-score loss for the Cats as they are now 2-4. It is the first time since 2018 that they start a season like this in their first 6 games, and they look it's disgusting. It's not a great feeling. It looks about as bad as my background right now as we're in the middle of getting settled into a new house. So you're going to have to deal with some, old baby clothes boxes and some Home Depot boxes for a little bit. Mason Voth, KSU fan, Drew Galloway here with you as we are ready to once again do the same song and dance, talk about a K-State loss that feels like it could have been avoidable if you just do a few things differently. And I'll start this by saying that through the first 4 losses of the season, maybe not as much in Tucson, but even still then, I would put it more on the players. I thought those were player-initiated losses. Today, given what transpired, I think you got what you wanted out of the players. They really made only one critical mistake, and it was the interception that Avery Johnson threw. And at the end of it, we'll talk about this in a little bit. It kind of goes directly back to what Genesis Smith said after the Arizona game, where we knew what they were going to do. I mean, the Baylor player that picked the ball off knew exactly what was going on in that play. I mean, he essentially got himself to the point where he was able to be running his own type of route, but put himself in the position to be right where Jerron Tibbs was supposed to be, took the ball the other way, and K-State wasn't even able to get him tripped up or anything. They just gave up the pick 6 right there. And then Avery's got to be better in that situation. I don't put this loss on him, though. He had the back-breaking play, but it was set up by just repeated failures by his offensive coordinator and his head coach. And I will start also by pointing something out about Chris Kleiman. Absolutely hate the way that he started his press conference after the game in Waco. This, to me, is on the same level as Jerome Tang after losing to Wichita State. Totally disingenuous and just false to treat your fans like this. To start that thing by saying tough place to play. When we saw the images, we saw that it was maybe 40% full. It was hotter than crap out. People were leaving after your team. Any team worth their salt would have put that game away. If it was somebody other than K-State, they're not losing that game. So it emptied out even more. It was miserably hot. People didn't want to be there. They don't give a crap about Baylor football. It was not a tough crowd. You just screwed up, Chris. Matt Wells, you just screwed up. Your team blew it once again, and you've put this fan base in a living hell through the first 6 games of the season when they shouldn't be in this position. So I cut the coach speak because it can work sometimes, and there are times where people don't want to hear it. It doesn't do a lot of good, but it can be true, or at least not a total lie. Chris Kleiman blatantly lied to everybody today. And if it was a tough place to play, then it's either because of the heat or because Baylor's better than you, and that has nothing to do with being in Waco, Texas. That has a lot to do with the problems that have continued to plague you all throughout the season. And once again, it goes back to people have pointed it out. I think Chris Kleiman has gotten far too comfortable with accepting excuses for shortcomings, or at least planning for them. And so you just chalk it up, oh, we lost the game, tough place to play. Not the case. Not the case at all. Absolutely hated it from Chris Kleiman today. I don't think that's acceptable, especially for a guy that hasn't even been doing his own coach's show the last few weeks. Drew, take it away. What do you think? K-State, losers again.
Yeah, this is, of all the losses, I think probably the most brutal, because it never really felt like they were even in the Arizona game. It never felt like they were in the game in Ireland in the second half because they couldn't stop Iowa State. The Army game, you never felt like you had a chance because you never really had the ball in the second half. So from that standpoint, it just kind of feels like it's such a killer because for a lot of the game, K-State was at least the marginally better team. So to play that way and to play well, and I mean, you're up 31-17, and I mean, you're kind of thinking about, and I know that like it's more of just like we and other K-State fans are just like thinking about, okay, 9 minutes left, you're up 14. You can win this game. You look ahead, it's not like TCU is a world beater coming to Manhattan next week, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, are they going to be 3-1 in the Big 12 heading to the second bye? And then to lose it the way that they did is just inexcusable, and it was just a comedy of mistakes. It was everything that could possibly go wrong went wrong, including Baylor loving the analytics, goes for 2, down 8. K-State has done this at various points in the Chris Kleiman era, down 8 or down 15, goes for 2. Of course, Baylor gets it. Of course, you get the pick 6. Of course, you end up losing the game by 1. So it felt very much like the entire season in one game, which is just even more painful. And then you're 2-4. You've lost 4 games by 13 points. Every game has been a one-score game, even the one where it felt like you kind of got blown out by Arizona. You still only lost by 6. So it's just kind of like the microcosm of the frustrations of the season, where you play pretty well at times, you play pretty poorly at times, and then you come up just short. And like I kind of have drawn some comparisons for how this season has gone. It's very Scott Frost at Nebraska esque. If you want to be even like more recent, it kind of feels a little bit like KU last year. Like it's very similar how they played out.
That's okay, right? Everything turned out fine for Scott Frost. He eventually got it figured out, started winning those games, didn't get fired or anything.
Well, what is crazy about how this season, and I mean, Mason, you posted K-State's record the last 3 years in one-score games, is that K-State in the first few years under Chris Kleiman was so good in those one-score games, and now it's been flipped and going the other way.
Yeah, I'll have to go look to see what it is in the first handful of seasons, the first 4 years, 2019 through 22, what K-State was in one-score games. But you're right, like it comes across as they were better in those games, and you think about what the difference was there. That stretch is the only time that they've beaten Iowa State when Chris Kleiman is the head coach. So yeah, it's something to take into consideration. Fan, from your point of view, what did you make of? Because I think the main source of discussion is going to revolve around the decision making of Chris Kleiman and Matt Wells today. So, from your standpoint, how did you view what they did throughout the game? And we know that you're typically the most mild mannered of everybody here. So, where do you even go based off what you saw?
Honestly, kind of all over the place, because there's no middle ground with. Seemingly in this game especially, there was no middle ground with the offense. Like, I thought Matt Wells might have had 2 of the best called drives he's had this season. In those 2 long, methodical drives we haven't seen from this team, making good calls at the right moments and getting in that rhythm as a play caller. And then some of the other drives were just too cute. The 2 quarterback package, while had some success last week, was not good this week and led to negative plays. You go to it on the final drive, throw in the 2 quarterback package on 3rd down when I don't think you need to. And you just had some times where you just couldn't find that rhythm with your play calling. You had Joe Jackson, who looked the best he's looked all season. And I think you're actually blocking inside zone for once this season, and you go away from it when maybe at the time you need to, that second to last drive, when you get inside Baylor territory, now you can start running the clock and looking for the field goal to get that 2-score lead back. Or that last drive, yeah, you get blown up on the first down play and you lose 2 yards on inside zone, and I think it was 13 personnel even with Joe Jackson. But I'd run that. It's the scenario at the end of the game. on the not the second last, but the one where we kicked the field goal. Either there's two scenarios. You either score a touchdown on a pass if you're going to pass, or you run it 3 times, make them use all their timeouts and kick the field goal to take the lead. And we chose the worst option, I think, in throwing 2 passes to use, I think, 9 seconds of play clock and then kick the field goal.
And even more frustrating is that second down play. Garrett Oakley has nobody within 15 yards of him if Avery Johnson has time to throw.
Yeah, and you did have the right play call in theory, but again, if you don't have the right protection to at least slow down the blitz, then it's not the right play call, even if you get the guy wide open. So,
which is unfortunate because they did block very well today. This was easily the best game of the season in terms of what K-State did blocking. You're right. It's so weird what they chose to do there because it's almost like they went into that goal to go situation with the mindset of we're okay with coming away with a field goal and having a 2-point lead, which, sucks to not get a touchdown there, but you're okay with it because you're taking the lead and there's not a ton of time left and you're thinking, okay, let's just get a little bit of a stop here. But the process in which that they decided to do it doesn't marry together with what they did, where you can't be like, it couldn't have been an all or nothing type of approach to that outcome. You can't say, we're going to try doing all this and then, okay, we'll settle for a field goal. You basically have to go into that with the knowledge of we're coming out of here with a touchdown, or we're dying here, or we're okay with probably only getting a field goal and maybe we get lucky and bust one in. And in that scenario, that has to be the philosophy. And they, like you said, they chose the worst one. They chose one that really shouldn't have even been an option for a competent coaching staff.
No,
because I don't know who would advise to do what they chose to do. And then, again, ridiculous where Blake Barnett doesn't need to be on the field in that situation. Like, the insistence on using him, like, it's okay in certain scenarios. The 3rd and 1 that they brought him in to use earlier in the drive, absolutely. That's what he's there for. Like, short yardage. He should not take another snap this season on the field when it is, more than 10 yards to go and you're not even to midfield yet. Like, I mean, just Matt Wells totally killed the second drive of the game by going to it, and not only going to it once, staying with it, and then just saying, 3rd and really long. Figure something out, Avery. I don't know. I put you in a bad spot. I only gave you 1 down to get 14 yards.
Yeah, there was a couple times where it would be 3rd and medium and Blake Barnett's in the game too. And like that's just something that can't happen. Like it is 3rd and medium and you're either taking Avery Johnson out of the play or you're taking Blake Barnett out of the play by having them both on the field. But also in that like sequence of plays, I think that we'd also be okay if they ran it on 2nd down and maybe threw it on 3rd. Because at least you make Baylor use 1 timeout. Instead, you did neither, and you gave them 2 timeouts because it was incomplete. So it was just so maddening. And, I mean, we can get into more of just what keeps driving me crazy is K-State is better now in short yardage 3rd downs. They're pretty decent, actually, in 3rd and long. But if I see another 3rd and medium where the ball is thrown 2 yards, I am going to lose it.
Yeah, it's I joked about it on Twitter. I think some thought I was being serious, that I thought you should give 0 options short of the sticks. You almost just have to say, now, you know what? You don't get that anymore. Like, you've lost your privileges. You either have to go out there and get it for us, or tough luck, like, get out of there, deal with it. Because letting Avery Johnson have the option to throw it short, either he is being told to do that or take it more often than he should, or that is a decision that he is making, and it's just not going to work out well for you right now, because they're not even like schemed up essentially to where like the design of the play is, hey, you're trying to pull a fast one on him, and we're going to have this set up to where he's magically open or is going to have some space because we're drawing guys elsewhere. You're literally just running tight ends towards out of bounds, and they're not going to have the cut to make something happen.
Or like the 3rd and 6 where they tried the wheel route to Joe Jackson, where it was never going to get 6 yards. It was going to get a max of 2. Like,
yeah, and you know, one of the guys you're trying to throw to there has basically in every game at one point this year had disastrous drops in Garrett Oakley. So you're not even throwing to a reliable option to catch the ball and keep things moving for you. It's a myriad of problems that this team has right now. And with all that said, they still almost overcame it today because they led 31-17 with just under 10 minutes left when they gave the ball back to Baylor. Baylor goes down the field. Like Drew said, they go for 2 after scoring the touchdown. After K-State gave them 40 yards as easily as they could, and then some nice plays were made once again by Baylor's tight end that just dominated K-State today. So many failures all around, and I think people will look at the defense once again, and there were missed tackles today. It was bad. Horrible game for Austin Romaine, who just played a fantastic game last week against UCF, but there were a lot of missed tackles today. He factored into a lot of the struggles there. But then you go and look at it, and the defense only gave up 28 points in this game, and they only gave up 3 touchdowns in the game. And you go and look through the rest of these games this year, they only gave up 3 touchdowns to Iowa State. They only gave up 3 touchdowns to Army. They only gave up, 2 touchdowns to Arizona. Like, we can blame them for a lot of this, and I don't think they're good. I think they're struggling, but they're buying you enough time to do things with this offense that is supposed to be the good thing for K-State, and ultimately at the end of the day it failed, and I think it's more so because of the coaching putting them in a position to fail. And the defense also made big plays throughout the game for you. Like, they had numerous takeaways. They got a 4th down stop. They forced a string of possessions where Baylor didn't score. They had to punt it away, and you just couldn't do anything to help yourself out. I mean, this game was lost. Again, we know it happened in the 4th quarter, but it also was lost in the 1st quarter when K-State is up 7-3, and they get 2 possessions to go up 14-3, and they don't even get a field goal out of any of them to make it an even 10-3 and a touchdown ties it type of deal. That's just where this thing, like, it all falls back to Matt Wells and then in turn on Chris Kleiman, because he either signed off and was completely okay with a lot of the malpractice for Matt Wells today, or he just didn't do anything about it, didn't step in and didn't lead like the head coach is supposed to be. I get it. You've got an offensive coordinator. You've got a defensive coordinator. Chris Kleiman is a defensive guy by his upbringing. You're still the head coach, and when there are significant decisions that need to be made, you need to be the one with the final say, the override power, and being in control. So either Chris Kleiman was like, yep, that sounds good to me, or he failed to do that. And either way, that is a failure by the head coach. And that is why you're 5-10 over the last 3 seasons in 1-score games. You're not going to win games in the Big 12 doing that. You're not going to win the conference title by doing that. And the fact that it's continued to happen over the last 3 years now is why, in addition to being 2-4, the way this game looks, it just opens up to more questions about, like, what's the future look like and what's the point with this staff at the current point in time. But we'll get into a little bit more of the individual and game type stuff now. Fan, what did you see from Avery Johnson today? Obviously, the bad pick 6, it's going to essentially be what cost K-State the game. But up until that point, they played one of his better games in a K-State uniform, I thought, and was willing to run. Only the 3rd time ever that K-State has lost when Avery Johnson's run for more than 50 yards in a game. So what do you make of how he performed today and K-State not being able to come away with the win via his performance?
Well, I thought outside the one major mistake, he was really good. Like, you'll take 400 total yards, 411, I think, at the end of the day from your quarterback anytime. 72 yards rushing was really good. Plus on top of that, I think his 10 rushes, he had a 70% success rate on those carries. Threw the ball well for the most part, missed a couple of throws, but then made a couple tight window throws as well. Was really good scrambling to get positive yards in the run game, but also scrambled to make throws as well. It's what the last two games are kind of, I think, what we expected from Avery Johnson this season. And I think all in all, even with the interception, I think he played well enough to win this game, given the circumstances he was put in. You ask your playmakers to go make plays, and he did that most of the time, and at times when it was critical and when it was needed, but it just wasn't enough. Disappointing that it wasn't. I'm sure it's disappointing for him and the rest of the offensive guys that they couldn't do enough to win this game, couldn't score enough. And I really thought, you talked about everybody's going to say it came down to the end. I really thought it was that stretch in the first half where K-State punted it, I think, 3 times and settled for a field goal, where they kind of had – the defense was playing super well, even though they gave up some yards, made some plays, but then the offense couldn't take advantage of it. And maybe instead of a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter, you have a 24-point lead in the fourth quarter, and Baylor has no chance to come back and win it. And to me, that's where the game was lost. And then we talk about this seemingly every week. After one good game of special teams, the bad special teams is back, and critical errors all over the field, probably, very close to having the 4th fumble on a return this season, plus the insistence, even after losing your best kickoff returner, to continue to kickoff return.
And your second best and your third best.
Yes.
Like, that's another one of those things where you just question Chris Kleiman, like, what are you doing? Like, this is either where Nate Katzer officially sucks at his job, like we've been trying to say, because the kickoff return was terrible. Simon McClanahan fell back to earth today, and then you got the game-winning field goal attempt blocked. So that's either on Nate Katzer or Chris Kleiman. You got to step up, and that's on you, because I don't know if you're aware of this or if, again, you just let the bad stuff happen. You are the head coach. If you go over there and say, do not take the ball out of the end zone off a kick, end of story. It's over. You're not falling behind the 15, 20 yards from where you're supposed to be. And, K-State fortunate that they didn't have that rule to fumble, because even though it got overturned, we know how the video review system works in sports. Even the obvious is not a guarantee. When a call's made on the field, you should not assume that they're going to get it right. You almost cost yourself the game right there. It's just another one of those where I don't know if he's distracted and if he's just not as into it anymore, or if it's just everything's slipping away from him and he can't keep up. But this is the stuff that makes you question. And, I hate doing this because he's been a great coach at K-State. We've talked so many times about how he was the perfect – you couldn't have been better to get a guy like that after Bill Snyder, for how he is, what he came in and did, won the Big 12. But the fact that the last 3 years you keep shooting yourself in the foot to lose these games. They're not showing up and getting beat in, all their conference losses by double digits. And it's like, you didn't have it. You didn't play well. We've seen the games. We've seen the teams on the field. You've got more talent than them. You should be better than them. And you're just making decisions over and over again that are costing you. And I have to put that on the head coach. So, yes, that's just another one of those where the poor special teams today, the decisions to bring it out, that's another thing that falls back to Chris Kleiman, that you just go, what are you doing over there? Because he wasn't calling his timeouts in the first half either. He got lucky that it worked out. Just because it worked for you doesn't mean it was the right process. And then you think about, as the game is wearing on later, he does finally use a timeout after 5 seconds went off the clock that he could have used one. What is Chris Kleiman doing in game to help his team win? Because it's not a lot of anything right now. And that's where I look at, people hated when I questioned Matt Quattrero a little bit with the Royals, but coaches and managers are not there to deliver wins in every game. The players have to step up and do that. And we started this by saying, the first 3 losses of the year, I think a lot of that is on the players. I think they came out flat. I don't think they fought hard. They had a lot of shortcomings. For the most part, I thought they were put in better positions to win. But when things get tight and are important like this, this is the real situation in game that coaches have it on their plate. Like, you only have a handful of games each year that you have to press the right buttons to help actually deliver the win. Players make the plays 90% of the time. You have to be ready to step up the 10% when it falls into your lap. And Chris Kleiman over the last 3 seasons has repeatedly come up short.
Yeah, special teams errors again. Just that's another thing that just drives me crazy. Simon McClendon had 2 really, really bad punts. The insistence of taking the ball out when it was going to be a touchback. I don't know what the process even is there. The field goal getting blocked, I'm not going to blame Nate Katz or anybody for that. Like that's one of those things where you would
they didn't block Baylor's field goal from a similar distance, though. Like,
I mean, I guess, but if we're going to be really nitpicky about blocking field goals, then what are we even doing?
Well, look, here's the deal. It's one of those things that, yes, a block field goal, whatever, they happen. They're kind of random. But when you have this mountain of evidence that special teams sucks, and then another part of special teams sucks, what are you going to, you have to at least believe that you can give Luis Rodriguez an opportunity to make that kick. We never know, because that ball never got past, the line of scrimmage. So like, that's where it's that Nate Katzer has zero control over that. Guys have to be able to block in that situation. Although, is it a scheme thing? I'm sure Chris Kleiman said that he'd have to go back and watch it or whatever, which is funny then that you want Matt Wells calling plays throughout a game. And then anytime you get asked about specific plays in game, Chris Kleiman always says, I'm going to have to go back and watch tape on that. I can't tell you live. Well, maybe Matt Wells should be up in the booth with a better view with monitors, all this other stuff, and be able to help him out. That's beside the point. But yes, go ahead, Drew. I just was saying, like, you keep having these failures. Like, that's why, you throw it back onto them.
So a couple notes here. I did the math. 2019 to 2022, K-State was 11-10 in 1-score games. A little bit of housekeeping as well. Avery Johnson, we talked about how good he was today. 7th all-time at K-State in total yardage in a game by a quarterback, and is in the top 20 in passing yards in one game. So there were some plays where I think he's going to want to have back. And not just the pick 6. Like, I think that there was one, it was just before the pick 6 that he threw where they got the first down. K-State plays a little bit of tempo. And I think that they did catch Baylor off guard by going fast. And Jace Brown was wide open to win the game. And he missed him by about a step. Overthrew Jerron Tibbs on a deep ball by about a step. So he had plays where, like, he's going to want back besides the pick 6. But, I mean, that's just being a quarterback. Like, you can't be perfect. But those are, like, specific instances. And this is where it's tough, because it is probably not great coaching in that situation to want to go faster after you get a critical 3rd down. But they totally caught Baylor with their pants down and they couldn't take advantage. Like that's one where coaches failed K-State more than the players. But that's one where, like, okay, you got to make that throw, or, you got to come down with it, or you got to do something there, because it's not conventional, but it worked. And that's one where you just got to make the play. The blocking for the most part was better. Running back runs, if you weren't Joe Jackson today, were not great, which, imagine saying that like 3 weeks ago. Joe Jackson was awesome today. Like, he ran really hard, ran with determination, was one of the players that caught the ball short on a 3rd down and ended up getting a crucial 1st down later on in the game. So he was good. The receivers continue to keep playing well. Like I said, like there's probably some plays that they want back as well. But, like, Jerron Tibbs, 6 catches for 80 yards. You'll take that any day. You'll take Jace Brown's 4 for 106 and a touchdown. And I get the rule, but I mean, what's stopping everybody from just ripping a player's helmet off when there's just green grass in front? So I mean that is frustrating, but to see him, because I think in the first half you could really tell that he was pretty limited in what he was able to do. But for him to gut it out and still get 106 yards, make the biggest play on offense of the game, because I think everybody kind of thought that K-State was dead in the water after the pick six. So then to come around and that next play felt very Colorado-esque. To immediately hit the deep ball to Jace Brown. And again, just a shame that he wasn't allowed to score on the play that he was going to score on. But that kind of, it is what it is. It would have worked out way better for K-State. That ended up not being a touchdown if they would have executed better on that second and third and goal plays. But the offense did enough to win the game, even with how frustrating this game ended up being. And it's just a microcosm of the season. Like, they did enough to win, but didn't really go out and earn the win like Baylor did.
Yeah, I don't know. Baylor, like, they did the same things as K-State. They just got the supreme gift, and they got bad coaching.
They took advantage of what K-State didn't do. They made the 2-point conversion to make it a 6-point game. They didn't do a whole lot and got a little bit of help with a pass interference call to set up the game-winning field goal.
That was something.
But they did enough to go out and earn the win, where K-State didn't really try to go out and earn the win because they were farting around in the first half. And then when they had the ball up 2 scores in the fourth quarter, they couldn't take advantage.
Dave Aranda, the last 3 seasons in 1-score games, Baylor is 5-6. So there you go. A guy that I have on Fraud Watch a lot, 5-6 in 1-score games. Chris Kleiman is 5-10. Just might be something we have to start referencing anytime K-State plays in these games, and seeing how the records align. He's close to 500. Chris Kleiman, obviously, about a mile away from it at 5-10 right now. Not great. Let's talk about the officiating a little bit, because we bring this up a lot, typically in basketball, where everybody knows I like to hate on the refs. I like to call them out. They're typically pretty terrible. You should just assume that. Kevin Marr and the boys, tough day for them, I would say, in a handful of different ways. I think this is one where, like, you just look at it and go, it's inexcusable the way that they handled this. I jokingly tweeted at the Utah AD in the first half of the game that I understood what he was talking about with this crew. Now, he was right. But they were bad today. And then for a crew that was so flag happy throughout the game, Jace Brown catches a ball over the middle on that last drive by K-State, and they should have called a face mask there. And that would have made things a lot easier for K-State, and they missed it somehow. So I thought that it was poorly officiated today. And again, that goes back to what we say is close games. If you're going to get a bad officiated one, you can't leave it up to that. Like, you can't put yourself in that position, because you're going to be on the losing side of it at some point. And that's what happened to K-State today. So the officiating was bad. It was not up to the level that it needs to be, but you're asking for trouble when you're keeping a game close, when you have the opportunity to put it away. This wasn't some back and forth type game where, bad call here, bad call there on both sides. It was, the opportunity was there for K-State to finish this thing off, and they didn't do it. You leave it up to the officiating, which was putrid, and that's how you end up with the loss. And
Kevin Marr is the worst official in the Big 12, and I don't think it's really close. His crew is rough. Best and worst moment of the game for the officiating crew was when they were trying to flag VJ Payne after the play for whatever reason, and took like 3 minutes to determine that there was actually no foul on the play, and we'd play it on. Like, what are we doing there, boys?
I mean, it would have been an insane flag to throw after the PI call that came in late by a ref that wasn't even near the play, which is always great in those situations. So, yeah, I mean, K-State, you can feel like they got screwed there, but this is where maybe, you give props to the fan base, or just shows how bad of a spot that the coaching staff and this program has put fans in right now, is that I don't think fans are really too concerned about how the officiating operated today, because they realize that this was a loss that was earned and asked for by K-State once again. Fan, anything that you want to dive into as just specific plays or philosophy from this game before I throw a few more questions at you guys? I want to make sure that you both get your chance if there's something hanging out there that you want to squeeze in.
I think it kind of goes back to a lot of the things we've talked about this season. Of eventually, you are what you are, and you are what you show you are. And all the things we talked about, not leaving the game in the hands of officials, to me, I think comes down to winning on the margins. We've talked about that a lot, and how poor this team is at consistently winning on the margins this season. And that's how you lose 4 one-score games. And that's how you lose to, frankly, a bad team like Baylor and probably another bad team like Arizona. Teams you should not lose to. And Baylor, I don't think, is great either. So I would give them credit. They've got some really good offensive players. But that defense was not good. That Baylor defense was not good. And for K-State not to be able to consistently take advantage of it enough is another marginal thing that you can't. That is the thing that I think, as we've talked about, Chris Kleiman and this coaching staff, the thing that we've really seen slip, I think the last 2 seasons, going to the last half of last season, this season, and we saw it once in a while, the first few seasons, I think, that led to some of the losses, but we kind of treated it as a one-off that, it's just a bad game. K-State made too many mistakes. We move on. But now we just see it consistently. And that's frustrating to see. And frankly, I don't know at this point if you can fix it. You're a 2-4 football team with not a lot to play for. Arlington probably is out of the picture completely at this point. Unless, even if you win out, you're still counting on the tiebreaker lottery, most likely. So, how do you keep this team going forward? I mean, I think it was mentioned: are we cooked in the chat? We might be cooked. It's hard. It's hard to coach a team when the expectations were so high and you're not coming close to meeting them. And I think it becomes even harder in this era. How do you do it in this era? Because you want to say, because if you talk about pro teams like the NFL, NBA, if they're having a bad season, will you say, well, they're professionals. They need to finish out their season because they're pros. This is what they get paid to do. And probably that should be the mindset in college athletics now, but they're 18 to 22-year-old people. And they're probably not going to have that mentality. And some of them are going to be looking for their next opportunity to get paid because they can, and they can just leave and do whatever once this season is over at this point. So I think the coaching situation and the pressure on the coaching staff gets ramped up a ton now going into these next few weeks.
Well, so here's what I would say. So, because Dan Boy asked it in the chat, you bring it up there. I guess the only thing that you can kind of lean into and look at is that a lot of these guys have now played in more than 5 games, in 5 games or more. So they've used their eligibility for the season. And in college athletics now, you are essentially dancing for your dinner in every game. It's a contract year for everybody, because even if you're not going to come back next year, and to what Dan Boy says is, I don't blame them if they went out at the end of this season. Look, I can't disagree with that, because I was the one saying during the final year of Bruce Weber, yeah, have fun at Purdue next year, Nigel Pack. I don't even fault you for wanting to leave if this is the train wreck you have to be involved in. We just have to be realistic about that sometimes. And the benefit there is that these guys have nothing better to do than go out there and try to play great football so they look attractive to their next landing spot. So maybe that's going to result in a few more wins for you. Maybe, they catch lightning in a bottle and they're able to win however many more. But you lose this one today, a game that you could have won, that you really could have tried to sell, hey, this thing's getting turned around. You lose it, you can't even lie to yourself anymore and try to act like you can make it to the Big 12 title, which is the only way this was going to be a successful season. We said it already this year, but today just made it very clear. And when I said after the Arizona game, it's over, even though mathematically it's not, it is essentially mathematically over now for K-State. And especially with Iowa State losing today, like that puts Iowa State into that loss category where they're one of the ones that would maybe get to be a 2-loss team that you have to try to break a tie with. Well, K-State's not winning that one. It's over for this team. This was a failure. This is one of the worst football seasons in K-State football history, and they could win 5 more games this year, and it's still just as bad. So I think totally embarrassing, and the only thing that you have to hope for is that these guys want to look attractive to whatever school wants to have them in uniform next year. And then that leads also to other big questions that we'll talk about at a later time with the future of this program.
I also think that you kind of worry a little bit about the psyche of your team after losing a game like this, because you could have said that it was a new season when Big 12 play started. You beat UCF. You could have won today. You didn't. You lost by 1 point, another 1-score loss. You've lost 4 games by 13 points. It can just be hard to get up off the mat after just getting repeatedly gut punch after gut punch. It doesn't feel like it, but K-State actually has a positive point differential this season, but are 2-4. So it's just one of those things. You worry about where it goes from this. And we had kind of talked about win today could have been a really electric atmosphere next weekend with homecoming, playing TCU. You would have been 2-1 in the Big 12. You could really convince yourself. But now it's just, we don't know what's going to happen the rest of the way. And I get kind of worried because, like I said, I don't know how you can get up off the mat after you get punched in the face for the 4th time this season, losing by 1 score.
Yeah, you just go, what's the point of this?
At one point, and it goes both ways, actually, when teams have a season like this, where at one point you're probably going to blow somebody out because they don't respect you, and you have enough talent that you are in every game, so you could blow somebody out. But then there's also one game when you have a season like this that you're probably going to get the doors blown off you. And that's what you kind of worry about next. Yeah,
well, it could be next weekend against TCU. It could be any of these games coming up, except for Oklahoma State. That probably won't be a blowout either way, which is, again, a bad thing to say about K-State, that we don't think that they can go blow Oklahoma State out on the road with as bad as they are right now. I'm trying to think about the best way to do this, because it's not in good style. It's not in good taste typically, especially given the circumstances of the job. I think people don't understand sometimes, and the way that it can come across and how people can take it. But I think as we sit here looking at a K-State team that is 2-4, and they are in the middle of the worst start to a season since Bill Snyder's final year, which ended his time at K-State. And so many people ask about it. And we know what the last 3 years have looked like, where it's just coming up short. And now it's getting worse in terms of you're not even making it out alive in enough of the games to mask some of your problems, because you've lost to bad teams on your schedule. They had been beating the bad teams at least the last 2 seasons. Now you're not just losing to teams that have won at least 7 games. You're losing to teams like Arizona and Army, who aren't going to do much with the rest of their years. Fan, I'll ask you this, because this will protect Drew a little bit, slightly protect me. I don't care about being protected, though. I'll share my thoughts. And you are KSU fan. You are the fan.
You are the fan.
Do you want this to be Chris Klieman's final season at K-State?
I mean, I'll just say this up front. I don't think he would be getting fired, but I could see a scenario where he's ready to move on from coaching college football, and it's hard in the moment when it's this bad to say, well, maybe they can get it fixed next year, because it doesn't feel that way in this era. It feels like it's going to be awful tough. Like I'll say this, I wouldn't fire him. Like if I was Gene Taylor, I'm not firing Chris Kleiman after one bad season.
No, well, we know Gene won't do that.
Yeah, but I mean, I do think you have to infuse some new life into this staff if you are coming back and make probably some significant changes. And I'm not sure. I think that's where he probably is. Another way, he's probably pretty close to Bill Snyder. I don't think he's a guy that's going to make wholesale changes to his staff. And it's just this season, the way it's gone has been so unexpected. I don't think any of us expected to be in this position after 6 games to talk about this scenario. And I'm usually not very extreme in my reactions to when things are bad. Sometimes not even when things are good, but I'm not sure what's best moving forward for K-State football. There's a bit of me that feels like maybe moving on, Chris Kleiman deciding to move on and getting new life in the program and having a shot at Colin Klein maybe coming back because this is a short window for that to happen. Maybe that's the best for K-State football in the future. I don't know. But again, I'm not certainly calling for anyone to get fired. I just think there's got to be new life in the program somewhere, somehow. If Kleiman's here, whether Kleiman's back or not, new life has got to be infused in this program to get it better.
And maybe that's not even the best way to phrase it to you. The question that I asked to you answered it well. I'm just saying, I don't think any of the three of us want Chris Kleiman to be fired. If we had the option that this thing gets fixed, I'm 100% okay. I want it to be with Chris Kleiman because I like Chris Kleiman. I was one of his most staunch defenders last year when people wanted to rip him to shreds because he went 8-4 and they had a bad November and they were, going after him for what he said after the Iowa State game. I was like, look, I get it doesn't sound great, but he's proven to be a really good coach. I think they can get this figured out, and they haven't. It's gotten worse. That's the problem, and that's why, not since I was an idiot freshman in high school, and I guess it would have been a little after that. So I would have been like a sophomore, junior in high school when I was, on Twitter to, at the time, probably 60 followers, bitching about Bruce Weber and how he needed to be fired because he crapped the bed against Texas Southern and Georgia in the same week. Since I've gotten older, I don't call for coaches' jobs. Since I've been in the business and I understand a little bit more, I don't do that. But just every time we think about what comes next for K-State football, at the end of the day, I do go back to kind of, I think, where you're talking, Fan, where you just think this might be the best time for a clean break and to get the reset and move forward. It might be best for K-State. And that's where maybe the question that I should have stated just as a prompt for everybody is should this be the time for that to happen? Because Chris Kleiman's been a great coach. That's where the board right now is fighting about, oh, I was always right. He was never going to be a good coach. Well, I don't know. He came in, it was pretty awesome and won a Big 12 title and did it rather quickly. Did it when OU and Texas were still in the league. Did it against a team that played for the national championship that season. Did it with his backup quarterback. All these different things. And so, he's not been a bad coach at K-State. But as we know and as we saw, the greatest head coach in K-State football history, one of the 3 greatest head coaches in college football history, at the end of it, was no longer a good head coach and no longer should have been in charge of a college football program, and certainly K-State. And it was the right time to get out of the Bill Snyder thing. You can argue about it all you want about Gene Taylor and how he might handle things. He was smart and he was great at saying, nope, it stops right here. I'm not letting you come back for another year and giving you the Mike Gundy thing, and it's just another train wreck, and it's probably made even worse. Like, one bad year, writing's on the wall, need to end it right now. And that's the position that K-State continues to inch closer and closer to being in this season, I think, where just those two guys are going to have to sit down and have a hard conversation and do some serious thinking about what's best. And I think for both of them, if they are looking out for the best interest of K-State football, I do personally believe that this is probably the right time for this to be the swan song. It's not the way that you would want to go out. It's not really the way that Chris Kleiman's career should end. But when you keep losing games like this, you keep saying things that nobody agrees with, you're not showing up to your coach's show anymore. Like, just so many things that we're going, oh, I don't like that. I don't like that. Like, you're not in a situation where there needs to be a little bit of grace given to get it figured out. Like, I know we've been hard on Jerome Tang at times. Jerome Tang, like, his situation, like, he better off going into this year than Chris Kleiman would be for a bad year, essentially. Like, the last 2 years were not great for Jerome Tang, but you could easily see how, okay, step back. He lost his best player, one of his best players, before he could even play a game, was booted off the team by the university president. Then they lost their backup ball handler for the season, didn't get to play in a single game before it started, and you're playing short a couple guys that would have been serious rotation dudes in year two. You make it to the NIT, whatever. Okay, last year, you think you're doing what you're supposed to do to get this thing back on track. You whiffed big time. You had to learn a tough lesson. You missed postseason play altogether. Those 2 seasons sucked. And a lot of the way that they went through it and they handled it and they failed, like, that's on them. And, that you have to own that. But you can understand why it would take a little bit, because they got lucky year one in terms of how quickly they were able to get it figured out. Not saying they were lucky in how they did it, but just the fact that it worked as well as it did. Like, there's a real chance that if Jerome Tang has the last 3 seasons but never makes an NCAA tournament or an Elite Eight run, maybe we're pleased with what he's done, or thinking like, okay, he's getting there. He's on the precipice of getting this thing fixed, because Bruce had it in a not very good spot when he left. Like, they had to recreate the entire roster outside of 2 guys when Bruce left. But Chris Kleiman has gone. I'll give you a second here, Drew. But Chris Kleiman has gone now 6 seasons where it's been really good, and now he's just fallen off a cliff really hard. In addition to that, cliff started last year in November, and you botched a chance to play for a Big 12 title. And here's the last thing, and this goes to like what fans talking about, maybe they could get it figured out, or like the opportunity would be there. You could sell that with what they've done. It goes back to why I wrote the Avery Johnson story after the Arizona loss. You had your best opportunity with this group of guys, and you kind of failed.
I will add that it's probably the time that it makes you feel the less scary about what the future is. Because, there's jobs open. The one guy that I think everybody's kind of like rallied around is Colin Klein. He's been linked to a couple of the different jobs that are open. This is probably the time that would be the less scary for like what you think K-State can go out and hire or do. Where like next year, there's no guarantee that, Klein is an offensive coordinator. There's no guarantee that K-State turns it around if Chris Kleiman is still the coach. This would be probably like the least amount of break that is like huge and catastrophic that you could possibly have. Because I think that everybody is a little bit worried about where this goes from here. And if it were to happen at the end of the season, I think that everybody feels a lot better, not just about the future of K-State football and what it holds, but also just what Chris Kleiman was at K-State. Like, if he were to come back and K-State is about the same as they are right now, how he is viewed in his legacy is a lot different than if it were to end after this season. And again, like I just go back to like it probably makes everybody feel a lot better and a lot less scared about what the future holds if it were to happen now, as opposed to down the line.
Yeah, and we talked about it a few weeks ago, Drew. Like, there's the recruiting impact of this, where like, you can. There's a lot of uncertainty if things continue the way they are with K-State, and you're not going to get the certainty until a certain point. Like, so like a clean break would make sense. Like, it's just, it feels like it would be the right timing, and because of the Colin Klein thing, that adds a totally different element. Maybe if Colin Klein wasn't a truly hot coaching commodity with openings that you think one of them probably ends up with Colin Klein being hired, maybe we're not as urgent on the matter.
Well, I also think that if there's if Colin Klein wasn't a hot coaching commodity and that was who K-State wanted to hire, I think it would be a little bit underwhelming. Like this would be striking when the iron is hot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're in a position where you just you feel like you got to do it. And I've set the stage here before on a lot of this where Brad Underwood was the blueprint for this. And you can see with the footsteps that he took, you're like, oh boy, I don't want Colin Klein to follow in those, because right now people can paint the picture of he takes the Oklahoma State job. He's there for a year and it's good enough. It's hot enough. He got a year as a Power 4 coach, that then there's something bigger and better that comes up and takes him. He ends up in the SEC or Big Ten, and you're never leaving that money and you're never leaving that scenario unless you're fired. And you're not getting them back from that. It's just not going to happen. And so you have to be able to try to be in on the ground floor of it and then hope it's too good. I don't want to leave here. That's where you look at the Chris Kleiman thing, essentially. K-State got in on it, and then maybe there were opportunities when you wanted to lose Chris Kleiman, and he got to a point he's like, why would I leave this? This doesn't make any sense to me. And so maybe you could have been able to do that. And we know with Colin Klein, given the fact that Penn State was interested in his services when they ultimately ended up hiring Andy Kotelnicki, when it seems like Colin Klein was offered that job first, it was not the easiest of decisions for him to leave K-State for Texas A&M. They had to make it worth his while to do it and to paint the picture of here's why you need to come and be our offensive coordinator and leave K-State. And so there is obviously, I think, a clear attachment between Colin and his family still to Manhattan. It's pretty obvious to know. He was one of the greatest players in K-State football history. His wife played basketball there. His father-in-law is in the Ring of Honor. Of course that
they have a
would be
there.
Yeah. So of course they would be all in on this thing. And you just don't want to miss out on that. And I think that is probably what adds an extra layer to this. And maybe if you're one of those people out there that you're dead set, you want this to happen and everything, maybe you look at it positively and say, well, because Chris Kleiman coached with Colin Klein, he knows the type of person, the type of coach he is, that maybe that would, help you a little bit to where he goes, they're not just replacing me with some, guy that's failed 2 times at other jobs. They're not bringing Scott Satterfield in here to have my job. They're bringing in a guy that I think can do what we did here for 6 years. And that was become one of the most consistent teams in the Big 12, be one of the few to win a Big 12 title, not named Texas or Oklahoma. And I think he can do it, and he'll be the right guy for everything that you need out of that role. That's probably what you have to hope for right now, because Gene Taylor's not going to fire Chris Kleiman after this year. There aren't many ADs that would fire any coach after one bad year, given what the last 6 looked like for Chris Kleiman. He hasn't even there's a difference between him bringing this upon himself and deserving to be fired after this year. It can make sense to get rid of him, but just based on the way things work, you can't do it. He doesn't deserve to be fired. His 6 years prior to this don't stack up to earning an AD saying you're gone, you have no choice in this matter. It's going to have to be a mutual thing, and I do think you're at the point now where, just based on how he's handling a lot of this and the way the team looks, you're hoping that's what ends up happening. And I wanted to hold off on having that conversation and saying that for as long as possible because, like I said, it's not fun to say about a guy that I really like and that I think has been a great coach at K-State, and also then the business side of it where it doesn't do you a lot of favors in this industry to come out and say stuff like that. But I think we did it in a respectful way. I think we did it in the right way here. But it would be a disservice to the fans and the KSO members and followers out there if we didn't have this conversation, because that's what you're all thinking. And it's a pathway to what's best for K-State football moving forward, because the problem is I don't see a pathway forward for this team right now to being better, because their best transfer portal pickup in the last couple of years has been Luis Rodriguez. And you're going to have to hit the portal really hard this offseason based off the way things are going. Any final thoughts from you guys?
I'll add one thing.
No, hit whatever you got.
That some people won't like, and they really didn't help me today, but 4 years ago, no one's going to like this. Matt Campbell had his worst season, went 1-8 in the conference. I thought he was probably done. It was his 7th season at Iowa State. They'd come off their best season a couple years prior, even if it was COVID. And he's rebounded from that fairly nicely. He's recovered from the comment of saying, I never said we wanted to win championships. I just wanted to be the most together team in the league. And he has been able to rebound. It's a different situation, but it's a peer institution.
And they weren't even good the year after that, really. They went 7-6 and lost in the Liberty Bowl.
Yes. like they had some bad times there. It's a peer institution. That's kind of why I bring it up. I know everybody doesn't like, they're kind of our rival. They've owned us lately. We don't like necessarily Iowa State, but it's a good comp that you can have a bad couple years even in this era and rebound. And they really didn't change their staff all that much. They lost some offensive guys because they went to the NFL, but they were able to rebound there. So, that I bring that up just as a comparison of being an optimist of maybe Chris Kleiman can do the same. I don't know. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that would be my little token optimistic point of view to add to this discussion.
All right. You want me to be Mr. Pessimistic now on the other side and just to hit you with the other side? Because I don't know if you've been aware of what's gone in college football recently, fan, but there is another peer institution. They're south of Manhattan, not north. And their head coach, who has done a lot of great things in his career, one of the best in college football, played for a Big 12 title 2 years ago, won 10 games, went 3-9 last season, and they let him come back and, kind of force him to blow things up, and it didn't get any better, and they fired him after 3 games, and that program looks like it's a once proud program that looked like they could never do anything wrong is now in shambles, and that coach was 58 years old. Chris Kleiman is 58 years old. Matt Campbell's 45 years old.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to be Mr.
No, those are fair points.
The old fair guy, points. But that's that. You make a great point. I'm just on the other side of it.
Yes.
Knowing so some questions out there. And you're right. They kept John Heacock around and everything. And he's been fantastic. 2022 was Tom Manning's last year as the offensive coordinator there. But the defense in 2022, as we know, was fantastic for Iowa State. They lost
tackle Phillip Brooks, though.
Yeah. They lost games. They lost games in 2022 where they gave up 14, 10, 24, 27, 20, and 14 points to their opponent.
Whoever scored 10 must have won that game with no real doubts in it.
Yeah. Well, that team scored on one of the first plays of the game. Big play potential.
The only real comments that I have left is that losing a close game really blows that, and to lose it the way that they did, because like I said, everything that possibly could have gone wrong in that fourth quarter did. How often do we see teams down 8 not convert that first 2-point conversion play? And of course, Baylor does.
Well, I was just poor effort for K-State. And that's another thing, game related. I know that sometimes when K-State loses lately, it's a big picture conversation. We don't talk about the in-game type of stuff. Sawyer Robertson ran the ball today to a nice effect where he ultimately ends up with only 2 yards, but he had a nice scramble for a first down, and then he had the 2-point conversion. K-State has not been the nicest when they're facing stiff quarterbacks lately and letting them burn you with their legs.
And then if I was Baylor and I was their play caller, why are you not throwing 50-50 balls to Michael Trigg every time?
Well, some secondaries might be a little better than K-State's, I guess, Drew.
I don't think it mattered. Some of them were just great catches.
And that would be another thing, like tough circumstances, not always his fault. It does feel like on about 75% of the big plays allowed by K-State's defense this year, Wesley Fair is in the middle of them.
Yeah, he's in the middle of it and has good position. He has like a lot of first year, 2021 Julius Brents in him, where he's always in position but hasn't made the play on the ball.
Wow. All right. Well, guess what? We're going to end it right there. A positive to finish things off from Drew.
I don't know if that's a positive.
Well, Julius Brents ended up being pretty good. And, there aren't many positives to take away from a 2-4 team right now, Drew. The comparison at this stage of the game would be 2018 K-State. So, we'll move on, see what happens. We'll have regular shows throughout the week because I do have internet. I will be coming to you from my dungeon downstairs, unfinished basement, clothes everywhere. We'll get it figured out. And hopefully I sound a little bit better by Monday. And we appreciate everybody joining us after another disappointing game for K-State. Thanks to Drew, thanks to Fan. And we'll get out of here. Plenty of coverage to close things up from the game against Baylor over at KSO. DY was down in Waco. He's got post-game press conference stuff up on the KSO YouTube as well, and then his thoughts and other takeaways from the game. So plenty of fallout from this one. K-State's got to turn around, get ready for a tough test with Josh Hoover and TCU coming to town next weekend. We'll be there, 2:30 kick next week. We'll go live after the game, as always. We're out of here. Thanks for watching and listening to K-State Online.